Hey, this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everyone. And thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It really helps me a lot. And thank you so much for checking out my website, paradoxastrology.com. I'm a professional astrologer. I can help you with anything astrology or occult related. Okay, so we're going to talk about the new moon that's going to be happening in Capricorn, which is in Uttara Ashadha, is the Nakshatra. So allow me to explain what that means for you and the world. It's going to be at 7 degrees, and this is happening on January 21st. With Uttara Ashadha, it translates to the later victory. So a lot of the times events that have to do with presidents being sworn in or different events such as the World Economic Forum gathering that's happening in Davos, these things are occurring because the sun right now is in Uttara Ashadha. Now, when the sun is in Uttara Ashadha, it helps you to be undefeated. This one and Purva Ashadha, which we just had the full moon in, are both considered the ones that are undefeated. But when you're in Uttara Ashadha, it's very good for making a plan that you wish to have a victory in long term. So that's why it's the latter victory. So that's why engagements happen during this time. Now, when we look at the chart and we put the moon in the first house and the sun is in the first house, we can see in the second house, because Saturn actually just went into Aquarius. It was in Capricorn for 2.5 years. Now we're going through a whole bunch of different new themes for the next 2.5 years. And with having the moon in Capricorn, the new moon, that makes Saturn in Aquarius in the second house. The second house has to do with resources, has to do with finance, has to do with material possessions. Aquarius has to do with humanity. Right now, like I said, there's some gatherings of the world, of some world leaders, which have some definite plans to carry out and have a complete latter victory over the resources of humanity. We're going to see a lot of these things play out during this new moon. It also has to do with coming up with ideas as well, and how to penetrate the mental state of others. That's what this nakshatra has to do as well. So it's something new that has to do with government, war, and stability for financial gains, material stability, and material wealth. Saturn is also in the second house of Dhanishta. Dhanishta is wealth, and Saturn is karma. So that's why we're seeing a lot of recession that will occur in the world because of these placements and the karma that the world has to occur right now. So there'll be some problems with material finance and material possessions coming up in this year. It's represented by the elephant tusk. There's 2 elephant tusks, Purva Ashadha, which we just had the full moon, and then now is the new moon in Uttara Ashadha. They're both elephant tusks. The elephant tusk in the story of Ganesha broke off the tusk and used it as a pen to write to Mahabharata. And so it's going to be a good time to focus on knowledge, creative endeavors, writing, communication. Very good time to do things like that. But like I was saying, the elephant tusk can be used for what? Fighting. They use it to fight amongst each other, to create a warlike scenario. It can penetrate somebody. Like I said, it's also going to be about penetrating the mind. So you can use it by penetrating the mind, the mental capacity, by stimulating your mental capacity during this time. Or it can be used by others to try to get in the minds of others, just like we're seeing with the World Economic Forum gathering. Ganesha is seen as the Lord of beginnings and the remover of obstacles. This is a blessing if you're starting anything new. Any new beginning, you would seek this out. So Uttara Ashadha, it relates to all kinds of new beginnings. So having this as a new moon and a new beginning, yes, there's going to be a new beginning that's going to definitely start and have a later victory, but that requires patience. So in order for you to have this later victory, or something new comes up that you may have to work on, but you're going to see the results in time, you can guarantee that you will see a victory of this in time. Now that could also be having to do with relationships as well, because we have a very, not conjunct by signs, but very close within, I believe, 1 degree that we have Saturn and we have Venus, but Venus is in Capricorn and then Saturn is in Aquarius. But days after they meet and they form a conjunction, this could also symbolize people having relationships that come out of stability that could see the long term. It also can indicate relationships that can be very controlling over material possessions as well. So it can be a long-term relationship or anything, or it could be a business relationship. There could be some kind of business relationship that's done during this time that will have long-term effects. People could also be saving for long-term goals as well with this thing. So that does indicate with the Saturn and Venus. There could be a lot of people just not trying to spend money right now. And that's actually probably a very good idea at this point, not to hoard or anything like that, but just to be cautious depending on your chart. Don't take that for everybody. It's just very general advice. Saturn is also aspecting Rahu now. And there's a war between two great malefics. So Saturn is a malefic and Rahu. We have Saturn in Aquarius and then Rahu in Aries. So it aspects it by the third aspect. I'll probably make another video about this, but whenever we have Saturn aspecting Rahu in the world, there's always some big events that occur. Saturn is limitations, it's restrictions, it's that dose of reality. It's kind of like that parent, that father figure or a parent that kind of brings you back to reality and your responsibilities. And once it takes its time, it will take its time to accomplish goals. But Rahu is that force that wants everything done right away. It's that obsession with getting ahead. It's that obsession with the material abundance. It can be a very good obsession where if you channel it in the correct manner, but a lot of people don't. And depending on your chart, depending how well aspected your Saturn is, if you have a very good Saturn, then you understand patience and dedication. If you don't, then you could fall victim to this Rahu if your Rahu isn't very well placed. There will be some events that will occur just because of that. It's going to be like that till around October. So we'll see some events coming up with that. Also, Rahu is about taboos and breaking boundaries, and Saturn is all about creating those boundaries and inclinations towards boundaries. So it's almost like now we have those who want to break free and those who want to control. There'll be kind of more of a war between these two things. I can kind of see that happening. So having Rahu aspected by Saturn, this is called Shapid Dosh, and it has the capacity for pain, struggle, and sorrow. These things can definitely come out. And that's both on objective and subjective levels. But it depends on your chart. I'm just reading for the world of what events we could occur, because in history, these things have always happened. It'll also be kind of more of a war between the social structure and breaking all these social structures, breaking everything that used to be. That's going to come up as well. I'll make a whole separate video about that. So last time I predicted with the sun was in Purva Ashadha, the moon was in Purva Vasu. Having the sun in Purva Ashadha, it was illuminating that something would happen that has to do with the war. That is another one that has to do with war. And since then, there was, I believe it was a missile strike upon Ukraine, and there was a few other disasters that occurred. It's interesting that now it's still in that war time. So I feel that there's going to be repercussions of whatever happened in the last 2 weeks from that moon that will continue here. So just like Purva Ashadha, Uttara Ashadha has to do with aggressive actions like declaration of war. So a lot of people want to start things in this, especially when it has to do with war, because of the victory part. Now, everything is very well calculated, and we aren't seeing the truth within the war at all, but there are wars that do happen, and they're calculated based on astrology so that you know what the outcome will be. The left tusk is Purva Ashadha and the right tusk is Uttara Ashadha. The right tusk is the yang energy, it's male energy. Now we're going to see more that have to do with the male energy, whatever that may be. The 10 Vishvadevas, and the Vishvadevas mean the universal gods, the names of the 10 celestial beings that translate into goodness, truth, willpower, skill, time, desire, firmness, and ancestors, and brightness and peak. And those are all of these 10 gods are extremely benevolent, and they are representations of the primary virtues of the original divine spark. So these are the good things that can represent all the good in the universe. So it's not just negative. There are a lot of very, very good things that have to do with this. Respect for the ancestors, respect for tradition, becoming a leader because it's ruled by the sun, stepping up to the plate with these things of goodness and truth can come about as well. The sexual animal of Uttara Ashadha is the mongoose. That's why this can be a very dangerous nakshatra if it's not used by higher level conscious beings, because the mongoose is so dangerous that it can kill a snake, and there's nothing else that can kill a snake in astrology but the mongoose. That's why it's considered so dangerous. There's not even a female counterpart to this nakshatra as there is in all the other ones. So the mongoose represents the power to give permanent victory, and it's also a symbolism to achievable goals. So these goals are supposed to be done unselfishly for the good of all, or else it doesn't work in this nakshatra and there could cause problems. So if you are using this, make sure you use it with integrity and make sure you aren't trying to do anything that will harm others in any way. The professions that this has to deal with, that you could potentially see something new that comes about that could have that latter victory, are anything that have to do with priests, counselors, astrologers, but it's also lawyers of ethical nature, judges, government officials, psychologists, military professionals is why we're going to see more about the war. So explorers, wrestlers, sword fighters, combat, athletes, business executives, organizers, defense industry, which has to do with authoritative figures, all types, teachers, guards, hunters, anything to do with construction industry, politicians, and anything that requires responsibility and ethics. Now, the places, it has to do with prairies, flat savannas, mountainous forests, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, bird sanctuaries, government buildings, grounds, courts. We're dealing with the courts, the temples, the churches, any religious buildings, universities, things like that, college campuses, military bases, gentlemen clubs, societies, sports stadiums, and anything that has to do with any of the above. So it's great if you're planning anything new. Any new beginnings, great time to start that now. Any plans for anything, initial plans for activity, beginning with a new, laying foundations, anything spiritual you want to start is a good time because this is the last point of the sun. So it's when the sun is at its most maturest and this nakshatra. It's good for signing contracts, promotions. So anything you want to have laid out long term, great for that. New business, great for that. Dealing with the public, legal matters. Best nakshatra to do anything like that. It's not good for travel though. Not good for ending. If something ends in this time, it might take a while to end. It might not actually end. So it's also represented by the tarot card number 21. 21 is the world card. So it's kind of seen to represent the earthly plane of existence with everything that it entails. And it represents perfection and finality of the universal perspective. So the 21 is also considered the crown of the magi. So that's why anything that has to do with tradition goes really well here, or the ancestors. All kings, including Indra, is the king of gods, and were supposedly riding on elephants. And during the processes, and sometimes during warfare. So that's why Uttara Ashadha has a direct relationship with that has to include kingship and responsibilities. Anything that's responsible is the key word of this nakshatra. The sun being the ruler, which means it could have to do with royal families as well. So it's not just the civil servants in the government, it has to do with the higher up leaders or royalty at hand. So we'll definitely see some things happening with that, and maybe some new events beginning, especially having this new moon is the perfect time to start something new that you want longevity on. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.